January 12th. Oh, here we go. Let's do that again. Let's call the meeting to order at 10:01 on January 12th. Beth, can we have a roll call, please?
Sure. I will go by library name. If you could just state your name for the record. Algonquin.
Sarah Murray.
Carrie.
McNulty.
Crystal Lake. Steve Catherine. Displains.
Joe Bonell.
Ela. Evanston.
Kara Danzig Lyons. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Fox River Valley.
Dodson.
Fremont. Blanco.
Becky Helsley.
Glenview. Grays Lake. Island Park.
Smith.
Huntley.
Frank Novak.
Indian Trails.
Ryan Shepherd.
Lake Forest. Lake Villa.
Mick Jacobson.
Lincolnwood.
Josephine Tucci.
Morton Grove. Niles, Maine.
Andy Rademacher.
Northbrook.
Kate Hall.
Palatine.
Hey, Dilger.
Park Ridge. So Joanna, are you there? Prospect Heights.
Crazy Alex Todd. This seems kind of weird. I heard Kate Hall announce herself like 2 or 3 times.
Okay, I'll go back through and anyone that we maybe missed. Round Lake.
Jim DiDonato.
Wilmette.
Anthony Austin.
Winnetka.
Volney, Veronica Dabrowski.
Zion Benton.
Robin Smith.
And I'll try again for Ela. Fremont. Glenview.
Lindsay Dorfman.
Thank you, Lindsay. Grays Lake. And Park Ridge.
Hi, I didn't hear you call McHenry. Leslie Jakaki's here for it.
I totally skipped over McHenry. I'm so sorry, Leslie.
That's fine.
Thank you. I was.
And Catherine Martins for Crystal Lake. I'm here.
I saw you. I didn't hear you. And third try for Park Ridge.
Thought I saw Joanna on.
Thought I
Yeah,
did.
I saw
she
her
must have
face.
had, maybe she logged off. I don't see her in the list anymore.
Oh, okay.
Let's see if she comes back on.
Yeah.
Thank you, Beth. If she comes back on, we'll make a note of her arrival. Any additions to the agenda? And any public comment? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as listed in the agenda. Beth, do I need to read off all of the items?
I think we could say as presented.
As presented. Okay,
So Kate Hall. Palatine. Seconded Kate from Northbrook.
So
thank you, Jeannie. Thank you, Kate. Beth, can we have a roll call vote, please?
We're gonna do this one more time. Try not to miss anyone. Algonquin.
Yes.
Carrie.
Yes.
Crystal Lake.
Yes.
Displains.
Yes.
Ela. Evanston.
Yes.
Fox River Valley.
Yes.
Fremont. Blanco.
Yes.
Glenview.
Yes.
Grays Lake. Highland Park.
Yes.
Huntley.
Yes.
Indian Trails.
Yes.
Lake Villa. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Forest. See, I'm doing it again. Lake Forest. Yes. Sorry, thank you, Catherine, and Lakevilla.
It's all right. I can vote for Catherine too. She told me. Yes.
Lincolnwood. Sorry, Lincolnwood, you're muted. McHenry,
Yes.
Morton Grove, Niles Main,
Yes.
Northbrook,
Yes.
Palatine,
Yes.
Park Ridge,
Yes.
Prospect Heights,
Oh, yeah.
Round Lake,
Yes.
Wilmette,
Yes.
Winnetka,
Yes.
and Zion Bend.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the business part of the agenda, innovative projects and updates. Rebecca, will you talk us through this, what you'd like to share?
Sure. So we are continuing work on the partner program. And as I noted in the packet, at our next governing board meeting, we will be talking about, I noted this in the packet. We'll be talking about how governing board will make the decision on if they'd like, yes, here we go, page 24. We'll review acceptance criteria as noted here in the packet. So for that meeting, I'll have some additional information about in-market products, including Aspen, BiblioCommons, and EBSCO Discovery Service. So we'll discuss that in April, but then we're not going to be asking for a vote until October because we're still going to be working for some development and things like that. So if we need to gather some additional information between April and October, we'll have the opportunity to do that as well. I did also want to provide a little bit more information on the user experience report provided by Kathleen. So I read her executive summary, which is included in your packet. And the first question I had was, how does this compare to PowerPack behavior? So I asked her, and what was really interesting is that the sort of one-to-one questions where it was really easy to say, like, this is what we asked for PowerPack, and here's the same question in Vega, were around account management. So does the user know how to see what they have on hold, pay their fines, log in, that sort of like my account stuff. Users on the whole did better with Vega than with PowerPack, which I think is especially, I don't know, interesting, given that everyone that we tested with PowerPack was an existing user of the interface, whereas Vega was new for all of our test subjects. There are a lot of caveats to that, of course. You know, when we're looking at user testing, we are following industry standards. And that includes, you know, we're only testing a small handful of people at a time. So, you know, it could be coincidence that we just got some super savvy folks. But that was sort of the main takeaway that we saw. We're going to continue to do testing. Right now, the Vega interface is connected to our training server for Polaris. So that data is out of date most of the time. So it, you know, ranges from like, it's often like a few months out of date. So we had at least one case in the user testing where someone was looking for an item that was published in real life, but in the training database, like hadn't yet come out and wasn't even available for on order. So they failed that task essentially, even though they were, you know, kind of doing the steps that they would have successfully found it if it had been in the database. So there's always some caveats when we're looking at that information, and we're going to continue testing. And I do think for our April and October meetings, I'll ask Kathleen to do kind of a more direct comparison between PowerPack and Vega, just so it's easier for folks to see those connections. Question I have, the full report for that user testing will be linked in Friday's CCS news. So if you or your team want to read the big daddy of reports, it is quite sizable. That will be going out and then posted on our website as well. Questions about that? I have one more comment on Vegas stuff, but I'm happy to pause here. Okay, so my last comment is that Deborah and I are currently talking with Innovative about reporting and statistics surrounding Vega Discover. So as it stands right now, they are saying there is no access to any user behavior data from Vega Discover unless you purchase an additional product, which, as you can imagine, we don't think is great because they are working on an analytics product. And so they're like, well, all the data is going to go in analytics and we can't use Google Analytics because of patron privacy, which is not a thing, but that's okay. So we've provided them with a list of this is the data we must have access to, or it's not a real thing. We don't need you to create fancy analytics for us, just send us an XML feed or whatever of what the data is. So we have a follow-up with them actually today, where we'll be talking about that. So that is potentially for us a big stopping point if they're going to block that or access, because the only reason we can't install Google Analytics into Vega is because they won't let us. There's nothing technologically that would prevent that from happening. So we are continuing to work with them on that. And I will have an update for you at our next meeting. I see some faces and I'm like, yeah, those are the correct faces to make here. So that is not my favorite update, but we'll keep working on it and do what we can to find something that will work. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work.
Thank you, Rebecca. Does anyone have any questions about Rebecca's updates? I'm so not good at seeing if the hands are going up because I like the speaker view. So just jump in if there is something, okay? Thank you.
I don't see any hands, but for the minutes, can we note that Lauren from ELA has arrived?
She joined at 10:09. Thanks, Beth.
And I see Joanna's comment. Thank you, Joanna, about joining at 10:04. So I'll add.
Excellent. Thank you. So progressing in the agenda, included space to talk as needed about the pandemic and how it may be affecting CCS internally and their services. Rebecca, is there anything that you'd like to start the conversation with?
I just wanted to keep this on the agenda as a placeholder. CCS is continuing to operate as we have been throughout the pandemic. I would just issue a general reminder if you have any service changes, which we haven't really been seeing of late. Hours, days of operations, branch openings or closures, please continue to report those. But I think for the most part, those types of services have not been affected of late for CCS libraries.
Excellent. Yeah, that's a relief in a lot of ways. All right, unless there's any other discussion or comments on COVID-19, we'll move on to potential member.
Heidi, could I just say one thing about COVID? It's kind of not, it's CCS adjacent, but for those of us that are in CCS and have been updating the Richard, I'm still calling it the Richard spreadsheet. I believe it's now the Heidi spreadsheet technically. I just updated my stuff because we are changing some things. So it would be really helpful for all of us if we, if you guys are making any changes like canceling in-person programs, to put that there. Obviously let CCS know about their stuff, but I'm hoping that we can use that to look at stuff. So CCS adjacent. Thanks.
No, excellent. Thanks, Kate. And I always refer to it as the Richard, which makes it sound like a sandwich, but very important tool for us. Any other comments? Then we'll move on to potential members, and I'll turn it back over to Rebecca.
So this is also a brief update, but we can certainly discuss if you'd like. I spoke with Ryan Livergood at Warren Newport yesterday, and he is feeling very gung-ho about CCS membership. Based on kind of all the things, he'll be talking with his budget and finance committee and then board in February, and hopes to present CCS with a letter of intent in February, so we can work those figures into the budget that we'll be bringing to the board in April. However, membership for Warren Newport, we'd probably look for a recommendation. I'm just looking at Jeannie's chat. Looking for a recommendation from executive committee, probably at their September meeting, and then ask governing board to vote on membership in October. We would be kicking off the project with Innovative probably in January for an August 2023 go live. Their contract is up in September 2023, so we just want to give them a little cushion with all of that. So nothing set in stone yet, but he is very enthused and will be working with his board and working to get some additional staff buy-in. He did reference how excited he was to have the opportunity to work closely with all of the CCS directors, who he just seems to love. So great job, everybody, at being lovable.
Excellent. Any questions or comments for Rebecca on potential members?
And we
Or
can
further
Cook
discussion.
Memorial. After that, Cook Memorial is the only gap in the
And Deerfield. Amy's not open to it yet, but I'm going to keep working on her.
Well,
Oh, this is recorded. Amy won't watch this. It'll be fine. And she knows this because I keep talking to her about it.
Let me know how I can help, Kate.
I've had conversations with Cook Memorial, and they are interested. But I don't know, Rebecca's ready to talk about that at all yet. I mean, they're interested in concept, but not in practicality at the moment.
But I know David knows us, but has his staff met our staff? Do they recognize how awesome and fun we are? If it wasn't COVID-y, I would suggest maybe a party. But it is COVID-y, so maybe not.
Yeah, I would say no parties. Sarah noted in the chat that she thinks Ryan will be a fantastic member of our CCS team, and I agree. He has been a delight so far. Yes, I mean, I do think we still have some gaps. Budget and finance will be meeting next week, and we'll start talking about if for 2024, we want to change our membership fee structure again. I know it feels like we just did it, but it has been over 3 years. So we do want to relook at that data. Mick put together a great list of questions and things we should be thinking about. So he may be reaching out to some of you. We'll talk more at budget and finance and come up with like a direct plan, but that may make things more accessible to folks that have been not able to join. But we also, of course, want to make sure that we're balancing the needs of our existing members. So we will start another membership fee investigation over the next few months.
And Sue Reinders at Mount Prospect still has us in mind. Marilyn Gunther, her predecessor at Mount Prospect, signed a new 7-year contract with contract with the standalone. And so
Cersei.
Yeah, so they're still with that, but it's been 3 years. So that 7-year contract is now like 3.5-year contract. And so that she's starting to get ducks in a row and whatever you get lined up and fees in order or whatever you do. So She
And
is,
then that would mean, as we know, that since Sue only had to be president and on the CCS executive committee for, I think, 5 years, but she's at a new library now, so that sets her back to 0.
yeah,
So we
clean
could just
slate.
start her all over again,
Yep, yep.
right?
Please make a note of that in the minutes, Beth. Thank you.
I don't think we should use that as a selling point when we're talking to her.
I mean, it's a selling point for us because Sue's awesome, but yeah, you're probably right, Jeannie.
Yeah, I did speak with Sue just to talk about process and all of that a couple months ago. So we're waiting for more info from her, and of course have offered her whatever support she needs in terms of data or information about CCS as she works on her ducks and bees, as Alex has assigned them.
Well, thank you, Rebecca, for the information and for being mindful of that. I know difficult balance between thinking about the current membership and the larger goals we have previously articulated for membership. So thank you. Let's move on to reports unless there's anything else. And I will state that I do not have a report from Pam, President Pam, to share with you today. So we'll move on to Secretary. Any report? I'm going to take that as a no. Treasurer report.
We've already kind of went through it a little bit. We're meeting in the near future. I'm going to have a bunch of meetings talking about scale. So if you have thoughts on that, or if you want, for the new directors who weren't here 3 years ago or 4 years ago, if you want to talk about what this was, talk to Beth and Rebecca. You can talk to me too, but they could probably give you a better context. But it's a big task we're taking on this year.
Thank you, Meg. Any questions for Meg? And let's we'll punt back to Rebecca for the executive director report.
And I just have 2 things to cover unless anyone has questions. The first is a question from Joe at Displays, who asked that we talk about Tableau and provide some context on what CCS is doing. So what we are currently, we have within CCS, we just have a couple of licenses for Tableau. So we have a hosted instance. I'm going to back up. Tableau is a data analytics tool. You can bring together data from multiple sources and then use their tools to create visualizations, charts, graphs, dashboards, that sort of thing. So we have been working internally on that. We started with Google Data Studio, but our data sets were too large. And so Google Data Studio was erroring out for us. So we moved to Tableau, which is a paid product. So CCS is feeding data into a specific server instance of Tableau. And then we are creating tools that libraries will be able to use. So a couple of examples we have here, and this is a work in progress. It keeps growing and changing, and Rachel and Bob are prototyping this and then getting feedback from members and then making some more adjustments. But essentially, this is a tool that can help libraries determine how balanced their collection is in terms of the diversity, the geographic diversity, or the diversity of authors or subjects or geography. And then also compare their holdings to their neighbors' holdings. So if they're like, oh, we really don't have any books, that cover neurodiversity, what books do our neighbors have? Would those be good fits for us? Let me go add those to our collection. So there will be documentation on how to use this dashboard. I just wanted to show you what the sort of thing you'd have access to when we send out these invitations is. And in addition to these dashboards, Bob is really getting a workout. So Deborah is working with Bob and database management on developing a potential expanding our resource sharing policy to be a little bit more specific. So they've been doing a lot of work looking at the availability of items, like holds ratios for material, the availability of items that are holdable versus non-holdable. Is there like a sweet spot where there's more items available on the shelf before libraries start weeding, trying to identify some of these things, and they're working with database management on that. So again, this is right now just for internal use. So there's not really documentation outside of Bob and Deborah explaining to me how it works. But moving forward, we'll be able to give your library access to these and/or similar tools that you can use to help make decisions within your library. What you won't be able to do is like add your own data. So we talked about this with executive committee a little bit. It's like, oh, well, if I want to like add my program attendance data or my gate counts, can I like throw that in? No, your access will be as a viewer. And then if you wanted to use Tableau within your libraries for like your own stuff, like again, program attendance, gate counts, computer usage, whatever other statistics you're collecting, you would need to set up your own server instance with Tableau and feed that data in order to work with it. So we're specifically looking at ILS data and what we can determine with it. It gives us a lot more flexibility to kind of look at data changes over time. And I'm really excited with what Bob and the team have been working up. And we are looking forward to getting it cleaned up and ready for showtime. We'll have a firmer timeline on that in the next week or so, a couple of weeks. So Joe, does that answer your question? Cool. Other questions about that? And then the other update I wanted to provide is really a pie in the sky sort of update. So I am on the Rails Consortia Committee LSAP Sustainability Working Group, which is a working group of a committee of the board. So we have been charged with looking at how, among other things, how Rails distributes funding to LSAPs, like how Rails provides support, in part because there are some LSAPs within the Rail, and again, LSAPs are consortia like us. There are some LSAPs in the Rails service area that rely pretty heavily on Rails support to the point where like up to half of their revenue is from Rails. So if Rails stopped or changed that, they would have to increase fees like 20 to 50% for libraries, and they would almost inevitably lose members who couldn't afford to stay on. So obviously that's a problem. And so this working group has been tasked at looking at potential solutions. And we have a lot of potential solutions on the table, and we're looking at a lot of different kinds of data. We've been doing a lot of comparison of kind of how our services and finances compare across consortia, which showed us what we already know, that services are very different. Fees are very different. The libraries are very different. Let me show this. So this is a dashboard that Grant Halter over at Rails has put together for the working group. And so it looks at a lot of different things. Again, LSAP service population. The part that is kind of most, oh, here it is. Grant is better at demoing his dashboard than I am. That is for sure. So one thing that has been really illustrative, I don't know how it's pronounced, is looking at operating expenditures per capita. And this is a conversation I had, I think with Roxanne when she was at Fox River Valley. She's like, our operating expenditure per capita is so low compared to, so many of our neighbors in CCS, and she's not wrong. The link to this dashboard is in your packet, and I can resend it if you want to take a look at it. So, you can see that this is looking at all of the libraries. So we've got standalones like Elk Grove Village and Deerfield here. CCS libraries are in blue. So we have libraries that are kind of up at the top of spending, as well as libraries that are kind of in the middle of the pack. No one's like all the way down in this zone. But you can see, it ranges from $27 per capita within Rails to, we can even ignore our $2,000 outliers, to almost $300 per capita. So it's such a huge diversity, and how the kind of perennial problem is, how does Rails provide services? This is just looking at public libraries. To all of these libraries, how do consortia provide services? Again, we're going to be talking about budget and membership fees. But essentially, I proposed to the working group that a piece of data, or a set of data that we need to analyze before we continue spinning our wheels, is that we being the Rails group, needs to send out an RFI to vendors to see what it would look like if we were all on the same system. And I know that this is a thing that this is a very pie in the sky thing. This is not necessarily, I think, the most likely scenario, but I don't think that we've really, as a community, talked about it since, I don't know, 2007, 2009, and I wasn't in the game at that stage, so I don't know. I know there were a lot of objections. I know that there was a lot of, very strong communities that were already established. And that there would be a lot of work to make something like that a reality, and that it would not be attractive to a lot of libraries. That said, I do think that for this committee to really do our work, we need to look at that data. So I just wanted to be upfront that we will be taking a look at that over the next several months. That is not me pushing for CCS to scoop up any other LSAPs or to dissolve and join some massive consortium. But I think that we need to look at the numbers before we continue to say for another 10 years, like, oh no, that won't work for us. That's what other states do, but not what we do in Illinois. So again, I told my staff this too, or I told the managers yesterday, I'm like, nobody needs to be cleaning up their resume. This isn't a thing where next week we're all going to lose our jobs. Like, this is just our due diligence as this committee, but I wanted to be upfront so nobody heard it in a Rails minutes and said, what is Rebecca talking about in these crazy meetings? So that is my update on that.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Anything else you'd like to share? Shall we move on?
I'm happy to move on.
Okay. Unless there's any questions, we'll move on to committees and groups. The reports listed there, pages 35 to 46. Are there any additions or questions about these reports?
I just have two quick, easy questions. So one is with the CERC technical group. And maybe this was put out, there's been a lot of information and I've only been paying attention to COVID stuff, so I might have missed this, where it said the addition to circulation manual, the users with multiple library cards, what was actually added?
I don't super know the answer to that. Deborah, are you on still?
Yes, I'm still here. I'm just going to open the minutes so I can make sure I'm answering the right section. This was just clarification. We brought this to, I believe it was executive committee Rebecca, a discussion or rather a question from libraries who are asking whether CCS has centralized policies around issuing staff cards.
Oh, so this was for the staff cards. I thought, so, okay, so that's what was discussed and when executive committee decided not to take any action. It was just clarified in the policy.
I believe that's what this is referencing. The other item that this could be, because we've talked about a couple of issues with duplicate library cards, was clarification on like statewide policies regarding whether a patron who owns property in 2 service areas can have 2 library cards, which I believe is allowed per state policy. So we just added some clarification to expand on those practices.
Okay, thank you. That is helpful. Just in case there's something that I should like know, because we've had circulation. We have a new circ manager, and so I just am not quite. I want to make sure that she is all the new information, although she just did a wonderful training with Mieko. And then I had one other question, and this is also something that I probably should know and just don't. The DEI metadata networking group. I know there was a kickoff meeting. What is that, and where did that kind of come from?
So that is actually a Rails networking group. Rachel Fisher of CCS and Scott Brandewine of Swan are co-chairing it or co-convening it. So that is why we're including that in the packet. You know, there were a lot of questions kind of over the past year and a half about diversity audits and, you know, cataloging, like we talked about the Library of Congress subject headings. It's just kind of a hot topic right now in the metadata universe. So we did think that it made more sense for that to be a Rails group than a CCS group. So we can just get more perspective. So that's all that we saw a need, our staff, Rachel specifically, saw a need for it based on the conversations that were happening. And then they don't have any sort of like decision-making power within CCS. We're just able to tap into their expertise if we need to.
And so the audience for that would be catalogers or anyone else?
I think it's primarily catalogers, although if, you know, I think.
Oh, I'm not going to, but I'm just
yeah,
wanting to see who the audience is in case so I can tag staff.
Yeah, I definitely think catalogers. I think it could potentially expand for like user experience type stuff, but I think primarily the discussions are around cataloging practices.
Okay, great. Thank you. Those are my 2 clarifying questions, Heidi, so I don't have anything else.
We have a comment from Catherine. Catherine, I see it in the chat. Catherine, do you want to share? Or she has offered to connect us. Thank you, Catherine. I will share that with Rails. And Lauren has a hand up too, Heidi. I don't know if you can see it.
Sorry, I'm terrible with the hands. Please, Lauren, go right ahead.
I just wanted to make a comment. I was surprised, or maybe not surprised, to read about frustrations with Inland Bank. We use Inland Bank here, and I'm glad to be on the Budget and Finance Committee because we have some experience with the exact same situation, and we did manage to come to positive resolution. So the Budget and Finance Committee will be taking a look at that. So thanks.
Perfect. Thanks, Lauren.
Excellent. If there are no other comments or questions about the committees and groups, Beth, I don't want to throw you off here. Do I need to ask for a motion to adjourn, or can I just say if there are no objections, I'm going to adjourn the meeting?
No objections, you can adjourn.
Great. Any objections, or we'll adjourn at 10:40 a.m. All right. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Hey, Rebecca, do you have a minute to do a consortia committee update?
Yes.
Let me just.
Is Deborah? Oh, Deborah already jumped off.